It started on a Friday night, under neon lights and thumping 80s music at a roller skating rink in Austin. I didn't even want to go. My friend Jay had talked me into it, promising a throwback party with cheap pizza and even cheaper thrills. I figured it'd be a couple hours of bad skating and worse flirting. But then I saw her. She was lacing up her skates near the benches, in these ripped black jeans and a vintage Def Leppard tee like she'd just walked out of a cooler timeline. Her hair was tied up messily, a few strands framing her face, and her eyes scanned the rink with this cautious curiosity, like she was waiting for something interesting to happen. My name's Mason. I'm 20 years old, from Round Rock, Texas. I play football at Hillcrest College, but back then I was still figuring everything out, mostly through trial and error. Jay nudged me when he caught me staring. Go ask her to skate, dude. Worst she can do is say no. I walked up with all the confidence of a guy hoping his face didn't look as red as it felt. Hey, you new here? I mean, not like this is a town, but you know what I mean. She laughed, and that was it. Something in her laugh cracked open a door I didn't know existed. Calla, she said, reaching out her hand. And yeah, kinda new. I transferred here last semester. You skate. I nodded even though I barely could. We ended up doing a couple loops together under that cheesy rotating disco ball. Everything around us blurred, the bad dance remixes, the shrieks of teens wiping out, even Jay dramatically pretending to fall just to get Sierra to notice him. All I could think about was how easy it felt to talk to her, how she leaned in when I spoke, how she really listened. That night turned into a weekend. The next Saturday, we drove to San Marcos for the spring carnival. We ate funnel cake, rode the Ferris wheel, and watched fireworks from the roof of her cousin's car. When she kissed me, it was like someone pressed pause on everything that hurt in the world. We became official not long after that. And for a while, everything was simple. But things changed fast. At a university gala for the football team scholarship fund, Calla introduced me to some of her old friends, including Reese, her ex. He was all cologne and smirking bravado. I tried to play it cool, but he kept inching closer, brushing past her arm, laughing too loud at his own jokes. Then he said something under his breath that made her eyes go wide. I stepped in. Back off, I told him, keeping my voice low. He shoved me. I hit back. I don't even remember the punch, just the cold floor and the sound of people gasping. Security rushed in, and before I knew it, I was outside. Bleeding lip, split eyebrow. Watching Reese still inside, laughing, untouched. Calla found me 20 minutes later. I didn't ask him to come, she said, eyes glossy. Yeah, I muttered. But you didn't ask him to leave either. That gala incident didn't end us, at least not right away. We moved past it or pretended to. Calla said Reese was just stuck in the past, and that the school didn't want more bad press by kicking him out over a fight. I should have walked then, honestly. But love doesn't make you smart, it just makes you stay. After that night, we got closer in a lot of ways. We met each other's families. Her mom was polite but distant, and her stepdad didn't say much. They lived in a gated neighborhood north of San Antonio, all polished tile floors and air conditioning that felt too cold. My folks, on the other hand, welcomed Calla with open arms and homemade barbecue. She smiled through it all, even when my dad made corny jokes or my little sister tried to braid her hair. We started talking about the future, colleges, jobs, maybe moving to Houston one day. She wanted to work in design, maybe interior or environmental. I told her I wasn't sure what I wanted beyond playing football and eventually helping out at my dad's logistics firm. Like he always hoped. That summer was a blur of sweat, late-night texts, and constant juggling. I had 2 jobs, one paid, one not. During the day, I loaded crates and ran dispatch with my dad's team. At night, I helped my great-uncle Leonard around his weird, crumbling estate. He had 10 acres of dusty land and a house that creaked like it had secrets. He swore he was just preserving history, but I think he just liked the company. Every time I stopped by, he'd be in a different room, ranting about modern developers ruining everything. You see this crown molding? He'd ask, pointing at a sagging corner. They'd rip this out and replace it with drywall. You believe that? Drywall. Meanwhile, Calla started acting different. At first, it was subtle. Shorter texts, canceling plans last minute, telling me she was just stressed about school or her parents or trying to get into a competitive internship. I wanted to believe her. I told myself she was just overwhelmed. But part of me, the part that replayed Reese's smug grin, started to whisper other things. I'd call and she wouldn't pick up. I'd stop by her dorm and find a note on the door, "Sorry, at library, studying all night." The first few times I bought it. But then I noticed she was online, laughing at memes or posting stories from someone else's party. I brought it up once. "Hey, are we good?" I asked while we ate takeout in my truck bed, parked behind my uncle's shed under the stars. "Of course," she said, not looking up from her phone. "Why would you ask that?" "I dunno," I said quietly. "Just doesn't feel the same lately." She finally looked up. "I've got a lot going on, Mason. Can you not overthink everything?" That shut me up for the rest of the night. At the same time, Jay, my best friend since 7th grade, went through his own breakup. He and Sierra had been the golden couple. Everyone thought they'd get married right after college. But one day, Jay showed up at practice looking like he hadn't slept in days. "She said she doesn't know what she wants," he told me, punching the locker so hard it left a dent. Watching them fall apart shook me. I started wondering if anyone ever stayed together for real, or if all of us were just pretending until something broke. And slowly, I started noticing how far apart Kala and I had drifted. She'd smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. She'd hug me, but it felt more like habit than feeling. One night, after she left early again, I sat alone in Uncle Leonard's sunroom surrounded by dust and memories. He walked in with 2 beers and said, "Son, whatever it is, let it hurt. But don't let it make you stupid." I didn't answer. I just stared out at the overgrown lawn and wondered if that advice was already too late. 2 weeks. That's how long it had been since I last heard from Kala. No calls. No texts. Just silence that filled every inch of my day like fog. At first, I made excuses. She was busy. She was overwhelmed. Then I started worrying. Maybe something happened. Maybe she was sick or her phone got stolen. But eventually, I knew the truth. I was being ghosted. Still, I needed to see it for myself. So one Friday after football practice, I drove to her place. Her mom answered the door wearing a pink robe and holding a half-empty mug of tea. "Oh, hey, Mason," she said, blinking in surprise. Kala's not here." My stomach dropped. "Is she okay?" She hesitated. That half-second pause said more than any explanation could. "She's been going through some things. Maybe give her space." That was it. No offer to pass along a message. No attempt to explain where Kala was. Just a soft, awkward smile like she felt sorry for me. I walked back to my truck in a daze, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me upright. The next few days, I tried to keep it together. But my focus slipped. My throws in practice were off. My temper snapped too quick. Coach called me out during film review. "Mason, either get your head in the game or get off the field." The real test came that Friday night, home game against our biggest rival, Eastview. Their quarterback was Reese. Of course he was. The first time he saw me across the field, he grinned like we were old friends. "Nice of you to show up," he called out loud enough for everyone to hear. "Didn't think you'd have the energy after chasing ghosts." I clenched my jaw and turned away. But he didn't stop. By the second quarter, he was whispering jabs under his breath every time we crossed paths. "She upgraded, man. Let it go. You should have known better. You ever wonder why she never called back?" My hands trembled on the ball. Every snap felt like holding glass. Then came the third quarter. We were down by 6. I threw a short pass and Reese intercepted it clean. Ran it halfway back, then turned and pointed straight at me, laughing like he was in a damn comedy special. That broke something in me. Jay ran over, grabbed my shoulder pads. "Hey, you good?" "No," I said. "Not even close." Next drive, I didn't listen to the play. I had one mission. I locked eyes on Reese, and when he tried to cut around the edge, I blitzed from the opposite side like I had nothing left to lose. The hit wasn't legal. Not really. I got flagged immediately, 15 yards, personal foul, but I didn't care. Because Reese went down hard. Helmet popped off. Coaches rushed the field. He was fine. Bruised, maybe. Shaken, definitely. But he didn't get up fast, and for a moment, the stadium went quiet. Then the crowd erupted. Our sideline roared. Jay chest bumped me so hard I almost fell over. "Dude," he shouted. "What the hell got into you?" I didn't answer. I just jogged back to the huddle with the kind of emptiness that felt earned. We won that game by 3. I didn't celebrate. I didn't even shower after. I walked straight to my truck, still sweating, and sat there in the dark. Jay found me eventually. knocked on my window and leaned in. "Hey, I didn't want to tell you before the game, but you deserve to know." I looked at him. He sighed. "Cal is back with Reese. I saw them together, holding hands, at the student center, a couple days ago." I didn't say a word, didn't even nod. I just turned the key in the ignition and drove home in silence, knowing exactly how stupid I had been and how far I was willing to fall for someone who didn't even have the guts to say goodbye. That was 6 years ago. I'm 26 now. No ring, no long-term girlfriend. No more football either, just a knee that clicks when it rains and a drawer full of old jerseys I never wear. After college, I joined my dad's logistics firm full-time, just like we talked about. I'd always planned to go off on my own eventually, but when he started hinting at retirement, I stepped up. The work's steady, boring on some days, rewarding on others, but it keeps the lights on and the wheels turning. Then Uncle Leonard passed away. It happened quietly. No big announcement, no dramatic final words. He just didn't wake up one morning. The coroner said it was peaceful. The will surprised everyone. He left me the estate, the whole damn place. House, land, all 11 acres of stubborn Texas dirt. My parents were stunned. "Are you sure he meant to give you everything?" my mom asked, half whispering like it might get reversed if she said it too loud. "Yeah," I said, staring at the yellowed pages. He was sure. The place was falling apart. Sagging porch, chipped paint, wild overgrowth everywhere. But it was mine. I didn't even hesitate. I moved in and got to work. Day by day, I started bringing it back to life. Refinished the floors. Fixed up the barn. Had a buddy from high school help me rewire the old lighting. I hired a local crew for the big stuff, but the land? The land I handled myself. It felt good. It felt earned. A few months into the renovation, I got a call from my project manager. Said the firm had partnered with an environmental architect to consult on some new zoning guidelines and suggested I bring her on to help plan sustainable landscaping. Her name was Sierra. At first, I didn't even make the connection. It had been so long I barely remembered Jay talking about her after the breakup. But when she showed up with a clipboard and dusty hiking boots, I knew immediately. Sierra had changed. Older, obviously. More confident. Her voice was still soft, but there was steel behind it now. The kind of calm you don't fake. We started slow. She walked the property, took notes, asked thoughtful questions about water usage and native plant life. I mostly stayed quiet, letting her lead. One afternoon, as we stood under the old pecan tree, she turned to me and said, "You really care about this place, don't you?" "Yeah," I said. "I guess it's the first thing in a while that hasn't let me down." She nodded, eyes lingering on mine just a second too long. After that, we got lunch after meetings. Then dinners. Then long walks around the property just to go over the layout even when there wasn't anything left to plan. She never pushed. Never asked about my past. But every now and then she'd say something kind. Something real. And I started to think maybe this time I didn't need fireworks. Maybe this time slow and solid was exactly what I needed. By the end of that year, the house was no longer falling apart and neither was I. Sierra and I had slipped into something that didn't need defining. We spent almost every weekend together. She'd come by after work with takeout and a stack of blueprints, and we'd sit at the big farmhouse table she helped me restore, eating noodles out of cartons and sketching ideas on napkins. It wasn't flashy. No dramatic speeches. No sweeping romantic gestures. Just time. Just presence. And that felt new. One night, we were walking the perimeter of the property just out past where the old shed used to be. I had strung up some solar-powered lights along the trail, and they flickered to life as the sun dipped behind the trees. She stopped, turned toward me. "You ever think about what this place was like before everything? Before Leonard? Before even your family?" "All the time," I said. "Feels like it has stories it doesn't know how to tell." She smiled. "You're doing a good job giving it a new one." That stuck with me. I hadn't been in love since Kala, and I didn't even realize how much weight I'd been dragging behind me. Ghosts mostly. The what-ifs, the old wounds that never got stitched right. But Sierra never asked me to explain. She just showed up. Again and again. She didn't flinch when I was quiet. Didn't fill the silence with pity or pressure. She just stayed. Eventually, I started sleeping better. Laughing easier. I stopped checking social media to see if Kala had posted anything. I even took down the shoebox of old photos I'd been keeping in my closet, just in case. That's when I knew. I was ready. I didn't want to lose Sierra to hesitation, to fear, or to the past. I wanted her here, with me, for real. Before I did anything, I made one call. Jay. We hadn't spoken in years. The last time we talked, it was after that football game. back when he still swore Reese was just temporary in Kala's life. But I owed him the courtesy. When he picked up, he sounded surprised but not angry. "Hey," I said. "I need a favor." "Shoot." "I'm thinking about asking Sierra to marry me." There was a long pause. Then Jay laughed. Not a bitter laugh, just a tired one. "She's good people," he said. "You'll treat her right. That's all I care about." That was it. No drama. No guilt. Just closure. I proposed to Sierra the following weekend. In the sunroom we'd converted into an office. No fireworks. No audience. Just me, her, and a ring I'd saved up for quietly over the past year. She stared at me, wide-eyed, mouth trembling like she didn't trust it was real. "Yes," she whispered. "Of course, yes." I pulled her in, forehead to forehead, heart pounding like I was 20 again. This time it wasn't a spark. It was a steady fire. The first shift came the day Sierra got the call. We were fixing up the back deck. She wanted to use reclaimed cedar. I just wanted something that didn't give people splinters. When her phone buzzed, she answered, stepped away, and walked halfway across the yard before she said a word. When she came back, she was smiling in that dazed way people do when something big happens and they haven't fully processed it yet. "That was Eden Living Network," she said, breathless. "They want to produce my outdoor show. Like season 1. 10 episodes. National broadcast." I dropped the drill. "No way. They loved my pilot," she said, her voice rising. "They said my blend of eco-design and restoration is exactly what they're looking for. Filming starts in 6 weeks." I hugged her so hard she squealed. "This is huge," I said, and I meant it. But deep inside, a little voice whispered, "What happens to us now?" I didn't say it. I didn't want to ruin the moment. Over the next few weeks, things got busier. Sierra was bouncing between the network, her design clients, and interviews. She still came by the house when she could. But sometimes I'd wake up and realize I hadn't seen her in 3 days. She kept saying it was just temporary. Just the grind before it paid off. I believed her. I wanted to. Then Jay came back to town. I hadn't seen him since that one phone call, the proposal blessing, but he showed up like he'd never left. He was taller somehow, slicker too, with polished shoes and a new startup pitch in his back pocket. A resort property investment firm, he called it. He'd made a killing flipping old estates in Belize and was now chasing a big project in the Virgin Islands. We met for lunch at a steakhouse downtown. He waved off the menu. "Let me guess," he said, leaning back. "You've got cash now. House paid off, business booming. Right?" "I do okay," I said, guarded. "I've got a deal that'll triple your investment in 18 months. Private beach, sustainable villas, minimal overhead. You in." I laughed. "Jay, $500,000 isn't pocket change." He leaned forward. "I wouldn't come to you if I wasn't sure." But I didn't feel sure. I didn't feel anything but a bad gut twinge. Too many holes. Too much polish. "I'll pass," I said. He blinked, then gave this fake chuckle. "Wow, you've changed, man." I paid the check and left. A week later, Sierra sat me down on the porch. "Before you hear it from anyone else," she said carefully, "I took a consulting job with Jay." My stomach tightened. "He offered me a design contract for the Virgin Islands property," she said. "He didn't even know I was with you until after. But the show's interested in covering it, tropical sustainability, cross-market appeal. It's a big opportunity." I said nothing for a long time. Finally, "Are you going together?" She looked at her hands. "He'll be there. I'll be flying out alone." It didn't matter. My chest was already hollow. "I'm not saying no to this," she said softly. "This is everything I've worked for." I nodded, jaw tight. "I know." That night, I lay awake listening to the wind move through the pecan trees. I had fought so hard to get here, to build something stable, something real. And now cracks were forming. Not from anger, not even betrayal. Just old shadows, and the quiet, familiar ache of being left behind. Sierra flew out on a Thursday. I drove her to the airport. We didn't talk much. She was trying to stay upbeat, rattling off her itinerary, island meeting, villa walkthrough, drone shoot with the Eden crew. I nodded when I was supposed to, smiled when she kissed me goodbye. Just 2 weeks, she said, gripping my hand before heading into security. Then I'll be home. I said what she needed to hear, but I didn't believe a word of it. The day after she landed, my dad had a minor stroke. It wasn't catastrophic, thank God, but it was enough to knock the air out of me. I spent the next few days juggling hospital visits, phone calls, and trying to keep the business afloat. Sierra texted when she could. Short bursts of love you miss you always bookend with apologies for being slammed on set. Then one night, Jay called. I let it ring. Let it go to voicemail. A minute later, he texted, hope your old man's doing okay. The island's beautiful, you'd love it here. He attached a photo of some sleek patio deck with turquoise waves in the distance. I ignored it. But later that night, around 3 a.m., I woke to my phone buzzing. It was Sierra. I answered groggily. Hey, what's going on? There was a long pause. Then her voice, thick, sleepy. Hey, sorry. I didn't mean to call you. Must have hit it by accident. In the background, I heard music. Faint but familiar, a steel drum melody I remembered from Jay's Instagram reel just a few days ago. My chest tightened. You with the crew? Yeah, she mumbled. Just finishing dinner. Long day. Right, I said. Go get some sleep. When I hung up, I stared at the ceiling for a long time. That voice, that slur of comfort, of closeness, it wasn't the tone of someone staying in separate villas or keeping things professional. It sounded like something else. Something I had heard before. I couldn't let it go. Not again. That's when I reached out to Tom and Marianne, a private investigator couple I'd once helped out during a logistics fraud case. They owed me a favor. Discreet. Fast. No drama. I need eyes on an island villa, I told them. Specifically, 2 people, Jay Thomas and Sierra Lane. You'll have names, photos, and the location by the time you land. They didn't ask questions. 3 days later, I got the photos. They arrived in a sealed manila envelope on a Monday morning. I didn't open it right away. I left it on the table while I fed my dad breakfast and checked on payroll. I told myself maybe I didn't need to see it. But I already knew. When I finally slid the photos out, they were glossy. Clear. Too damn clear. Jay and Sierra. On a balcony. Her head on his shoulder. His hand on her back. Another photo, them sitting together on a lounge chair, her laughing at something he whispered, his fingers grazing hers. One more, the final one, showed them kissing. Not a quick peck. Not a confused moment. A real kiss. Close. Familiar. I stared at the photos until my fingers went numb. I had built a life with care, with patience. I had given Sierra everything I didn't know how to give the first time. And just like that, history had looped back around, same betrayal, same silence, same 2 people turning their backs while I stayed behind. But this time, I was ready. I didn't cry. Not after the photos. Not even after the confirmation call from Marianne. They've been together every night, Mason. No professional boundaries. No confusion. I just went quiet. The kind of quiet that settles into your bones. The kind that feels like winter in your chest. For a few days, I went through the motions. Visited Dad. Checked in at the firm. Watered the plants. But something in me was already unraveling. Then I drove out to Jay's Virgin Islands project page, the one he bragged about over lunch. I pulled up the development records, the permits, the policy filings. He had submitted the plans under a new LLC with coverage still pending. And then I saw it. The insurance policy hadn't kicked in. The property was uninsured. One clause left unchecked. Jay probably assumed it had gone through, or maybe he just hadn't read the fine print. I read every line. That night, I made a call to an old friend from my logistics days, Keith. He used to handle demolition clearances, mostly urban sites, but he'd worked offshore before. You still got contacts in the islands? I asked. Depends, he said. What's this about? Just need to know what kind of red tape's wrapped around that unfinished estate project. He did some digging. Called me back 2 days later. Security's light. Access isn't hard if you time it right. Why? No reason, I said. Just curious. I already knew what I was going to do. The plan came together fast, faster than I expected. Jay's site had a storage area filled with flammable supplies. The construction schedule showed days with no workers present. I flew in under an alias, 1 overnight bag, and a burner phone. I wore gloves. I didn't touch anything twice. I walked the site at dusk, the wind warm and sticky as I moved through the half-built hallways. The place was soulless. Empty glass and concrete perched on greed. It went up easy. I didn't make it look like an accident. I made it look like carelessness, rags near wiring, solvent spilled too close to the generator. The fire bloomed like a vengeful god, licking up the walls and into the sky. I didn't stay long enough to hear sirens, just long enough to feel the heat on my face. Then I walked away. Back home, I put the house and land on the market. Quiet listing, all cash, no inspections. I had a buyer within days. A commercial builder who liked the acreage but didn't care about the house itself. Condition doesn't matter, he said. We're flattening it. Perfect. I emptied everything into a storage pod. Sierra's art supplies, her jackets, the little ceramic turtle she bought for our porch. Every reminder. I sealed it, labeled it with her name, and left it parked at the edge of the property. She got back the following week. I didn't call. She pulled up one evening in her dusty white Jeep, sunburned and smiling like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't already seen the photos. Like she hadn't spent 2 weeks wrapped up in my best friend's arms. Hey, she said, walking toward the porch. I missed you. I stepped outside, leaned against the truck, and nodded toward the field. Your stuff's in that pod, I said. You can take it whenever. She blinked. What? I held out the envelope of photos. She didn't reach for it, just stared. I know, I said. I've known for a while. Her smile collapsed. Mason. No, I cut in. Don't say anything. Just look. She opened the envelope. The moment her eyes landed on the first photo, her face crumpled. I didn't mean. You did, I said calmly. And it's okay. Because I mean this. She turned toward the property and stopped cold. The house was gone. In its place was dirt, flattened earth. No porch, no garden, no path we had built together. Just open land and a demolition sign. She stumbled forward. Where is it? Sold, I said. New owner starts construction next week. Tears welled up. You burned it down. No, I said. I just let it go. She dropped the photos, her hands shaking. Mason, please. We can fix this. I stepped back, opened the truck door. We already did, I said. You just didn't know it was on fire. Then I drove away, the image of her standing in front of the ruins growing smaller in my mirror until it was nothing but a dot in the dust. The next morning, Sierra's meltdown hit the internet like a thunderclap. She posted a weepy video, tear-streaked face, shaky voice, rambling about betrayal, creative theft, and the destruction of her career. She never said my name outright, but it didn't take a genius to connect the dots. Her followers flooded the comments, torn between sympathy and suspicion. Then she went full scorched earth. An interview with a lifestyle blog, accusations, claims that I emotionally sabotaged her work and undermined her brand image by removing her designs from a property tied to her pilot show. What she didn't know was that I had already handled it. I sent a legal notice to Eden Living Network 2 days prior, informing them the estate had been sold, cleared, and was no longer affiliated with any former design plans. A copy of the demolition contract was attached. They replied with a terse, "Thank you for the clarification." That was it. Sierra had built her whole show around a dream that no longer existed. Then came her second mistake, threatening me directly. "You owe me," she texted one night. "That land was our future, and you destroyed it. If you think I'm walking away without taking half, think again." I read the message twice. Then I smiled. Because what Sierra didn't know, what she never bothered to ask about, was that the land wasn't fully in my name. Uncle Leonard had placed the estate in a protective family trust with stipulations. My name was listed as caretaker and executor, but not sole owner. The trust barred any asset from being liquidated or divided through marriage. Sierra couldn't touch a dime of it. I drafted a single reply, "Check the trust documents. Page 7. She didn't respond, but Jay did. 2 days later, he showed up at my office. He looked like hell. Tanned from the island, but hollow-eyed and frantic. No designer sunglasses this time. Just desperation. "Tell me you didn't," he said the second I opened the door. "Didn't what?" "Burn the place down." "Mason, come on." I didn't answer. He ran a hand through his hair. "I had millions on the line. The insurance was never activated, I said flatly. You forgot to file the final approval notice. It's a common mistake, especially for people who think everything they touch turns to gold. His mouth opened, then shut. You knew. I read the fine print. He sat down hard in the guest chair, rubbing his face. You don't get it, he said. That deal was my way out. My shot. They're pulling the funding. I'm screwed. I know, I said. And I don't care. Jay looked up, stunned. You'd really do this to me? After everything we've been through? I leaned back. You did this to yourself. And to me. Twice. He stood, suddenly furious. You're gonna regret this. No, I said. But you will. Especially when the investors start asking where their money went. He stormed out. That afternoon, I watched the news trickle in online. Jay's LLC was flagged for default. The property was being auctioned as is. His business partners had pulled out. One posted a vague but scathing statement about reckless mismanagement and internal betrayal. By sundown, Jay's empire had collapsed into dust. I stood on my new porch, temporary rental, modest but clean, sipping black coffee as the sky turned orange. I didn't feel joy. Not exactly. But I felt done. Sierra tried one more time that night. She called. Left a voicemail full of crying, pleading, and half apologies. I just wanted us to build something, she said. I didn't mean for this to happen. But she did. They both did. And now they had nothing left to steal. It was a Thursday when they came for me. Two men, both in button-downs too tight across the chest and sunglasses that never came off, showed up outside the logistics office just before lunch. They didn't say a word, just stepped out of a matte black SUV and waited. One of them nodded toward the passenger side. I didn't ask questions. I knew. The ride was silent. We didn't head into town or toward the airport. We drove out past the industrial district into the abandoned outskirts where storage lots outnumbered people. Eventually, the SUV pulled up to a rusted warehouse, long dead and forgotten. They opened the door. I stepped out. Inside, the air was thick with heat and old metal. The faint hum of a generator buzzed somewhere in the distance. And then I saw him. Jay. He was duct-taped to a folding chair in the corner, shirt torn, face bruised and swollen. One eye was already starting to blacken. He looked up. His mouth moved, but the gag muffled the words. Behind him stood a man I recognized from the old investor dossiers. Victor Langstrom. Real estate shark, offshore account collector, and the kind of guy whose name only came up in lawsuits no one ever won. He stepped forward slowly like a cat about to swat a trapped mouse. Mr. Ridge, he said. We've never had the pleasure. Mason's fine, I said calmly. And I'm guessing this isn't about me. Victor gestured toward Jay, who squirmed in the chair. He came to me with a dream, Victor said. A beachfront fantasy. Promised returns that'd make my last 5 failures disappear. But dreams cost money. And Jay ran out. I nodded once. Sounds like something he'd do. Victor smiled, thin and cold. The problem is I don't like being shorted. Especially not to the tune of $750,000. He moved closer. But I hear you were involved. I was approached, I said evenly. I declined. Politely. Victor raised an eyebrow. Interesting. Because my paperwork shows you were listed as a secondary investor on the initial filing. Not with my signature. He turned and one of the goons stepped forward with a slim black folder. I opened it. Inside were printouts of the fake forms, the ones Jay must have forged to lure in extra investors. My name. My old signature, close enough to pass a glance but not close enough to fool a lawyer. I pulled a flash drive from my jacket pocket and handed it over. What's this? Victor asked. Evidence, I said. Metadata, file trails, timestamps. All showing I never signed anything. And all pointing to Jay fabricating the documents. Victor took the drive without a word. I've already shared it with my attorney and the local authorities, I added. I came here today out of courtesy. I suggest you use that to reclaim your losses legally. Victor studied me. You're surprisingly calm, he said. I've already lost what matters, I said quietly. Now I just want it finished. He considered that, then nodded toward his men. One of them stepped forward, ripped the tape from Jay's mouth. Mason, Jay croaked, coughing. Please, don't leave me here. You left yourself here, I said. Every lie, every scheme, I gave you a chance to walk away clean. I thought I could fix it, he begged. We were friends, man. Brothers. I stared at him for a long time. No, I said. Brothers don't do what you did. Victor stepped beside him, cool and silent. I've got what I need, I said. We done. Victor smiled. For now. I turned and walked out, the warehouse door groaning shut behind me. Jay's voice followed me, hoarse and ragged. Mason, please. Don't leave me with them. But I didn't stop. I stepped back into the sunlight, took a deep breath, and kept walking. Not because I didn't care anymore, but because I did. For myself. For the first time in years, I wasn't someone's backup plan, someone's ATM, someone's safety net. I was just Mason Ridge. And I was finally free.